Alright guys, welcome to Chronos of Tech. My name is Brooke and I'm going to be your host. Today we're going to talk about Kali Linux fundamentals, everything you need to know about how to operate Kali Linux from the terminal, so that way you can operate successfully while doing your hacks, right, and not run into any issues. So first I'm going to open up this new terminal called Terminator. I prefer this terminal over the original terminal, which is the emulator. And I have my own reasons for that, but I might make another video on why I prefer it. So we're going to open up the Terminator. All right, it's moving kind of slow. Okay, so here you go. So this is the terminal. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sudo so I can have root access, so I can do everything I need to do. And we're going to go over a couple things today. So one, we're going over moving and renaming files, right, and creating files. We're going to go over making directories and removing directories or changing directories. We're going to go over the etc files. There's a couple of key files that you need to know, and etc is one of them. It's one of those directories that have a lot of files that you may want to look at while infiltrating and hacking remote servers and remote computers. We're going to go over the get command. We're going to go over a few different commands. We're going to talk about how to transfer files over a web server, right, either to your own remote computer or to actually send files over to the remote computer that you want. And we're going to talk about how to use and edit text editors, and we're going to also talk about, lastly, how to change a file to be executable so you can run a script or a Python script or a new service. Okay, so first we're going to talk about how to move and rename directories. Okay, so ls shows all the directories in what you're currently in. So right now I'm in home at Kali, right? So if I want to change directories to the documents, then what I'm going to do is cd, which stands for change directories, and I'm going to go to documents. And as you see, now I have home at Kali at documents. So now I'm in the documents folder, and if I ls to view what's in that directory, then I'll see, okay, I have these things in my directory. Okay, so that's essentially how you change directories. ls is how you list the current files or directories within that parent directory. Okay, so if we want to rename a file, so let's say htb, we want to rename that file, we're going to type in mf, and we're going to rename htb. We're going to create a space, and we're going to rename it to hack the box. Okay, so now when we ls, we see that now htb has become hack the box. Okay, if we want to change it back, let's change it back really quick. We're going to go hack the box. We're going to change it back to htb. Okay, if I ls, then I can see it's htb. So now we know how to move, and we know how to change directories, and we know how to rename directories. So now if I want to move this file, right, if I want to move hack the box or htb, then I'll put in mf, and I'll say htb, and then I'll put in the path of where I want it to go. So then I'll say, instead of documents, I'll say home at Kali. Okay, and then when I ls, it's no longer there. So if I change directories, and by the way, to change directories and go backwards, you do cd, and then you'll type in 2 periods, and then that's how you go back a directory. So now I'm in home Kali. Okay, now if I ls, then I can see htb is here. Okay, if I want to move it back, then again I go htb, and then I create the path that I want to bring it to, which is documents. When I ls, it's no longer here. If I change directories to documents, it's back into documents. Okay, so that's how you move, rename, and create actually creating a new file, we haven't gone over that yet. You use a certain command called touch, and then you can create a file. And then I can call this uploader.txt. And then if I ls, I'll see uploader.txt is a new file. And if I want to view the file, then I'll type in cat uploader.txt, and I can view what's in it, which is nothing. Okay. Now if I want to remove a file, I can remove uploader by typing in rm and type in uploader.txt. Now it's removed from the list, so it's deleted. Now, if I want to make directories, then there's a couple of things that I can do. So one is I can do make directory, so mkdir. It's going to make the directory in the current directory that I'm in, which is documents, and I can call this directory face mask. And then when I ls, you'll see there's a new directory called face mask. And the reason why it's blue versus the uploader that was white is because it's a directory, it's a folder versus a file. Okay, and if I want to remove that directory, as long as the directory is empty, I can type in remove directory, and I can type in the name, and it will remove the directory. Okay. So let's talk about etc files. Okay, so if I go back, this stands for root. If I ls, then I can see what's in the root folder, and I'll see etc. And then what I could do is I could change directories to etc and take a look within etc. Now, as you see, there's a lot of things within etc, right? But there's a couple of things that you want to look at when you're on different remote computers and you're in the etc file. Okay. And we're going to go over a few of them, but what you see is you see a lot of services. You see a lot of things like MySQL, which is a database. You see the configuration to Python. You see Samba configuration. I think even Metasploit should be in the etc file. Let's see if it's here actually. Metasploit. No, it's not here. It might be in a different file, right? But most of the services, configuration is going to be in the etc file. Okay. Now, there's also a file in etc that's called password. Okay, and if you cat that file, it's basically going to tell you all the passwords on the computer. And this is where you want to go to when you're on remote computers, right? You want to go exactly to etc and get all the credentials. So you see we have credentials for root, credentials for bin, and credentials throughout the computer. And what we could do is we could copy this, and then ideally paste it into a separate folder where we have access to all the credentials and all the information. So that's why you want to get used to using etc. You can find all the credentials in etc. Right. Next, we'll talk about the get command. So the get command is basically to download different software, download different files or folders from a remote PC. So if I had a shell on a PC, I could use the get command to get that file. Okay. So you can use the get command for that. Okay, how to transfer files over a web server. So if I have a PHP shell or a web shell on a web server and I want to transfer files over from that web server, okay, I could do so with a tool called Wget, right? I can also use this to transfer files from remote computers. If you ever need to, you don't know how to use Wget, you can always type in 2 dashes and type in help, and it will tell you everything you need to know about how to use the service. Okay, and this is great. So that way you can see, okay, this is how you put in the version, this is how you put in the background and debug and verbose and things like that. Okay, another thing you can do for help is you can go manual, and you can type in you can say manual for Wget, and then they'll give you the manual for it as well. So they'll give you the description and everything you need to know for that as well. So you can always use a manual or the help tab to help you navigate services on Linux that you don't know how to use. But Wget is a service that's going to help us. And then, I'll pull up the manual again for Wget. Right, so it's a free utility. It supports HTTP, HTTPS, which are web servers, FTP protocol, which is file transfer protocol. It can work in the background, right? It allows you to basically make file transfers. I was looking for it to say that in the description, but it's not saying it. But it allows you to transfer files over a web server, or over a remote connection like a shell. You can also use Python -m simple HTTP server, and then what that does is it starts serving on the HTTP port 8000, and then you can connect to this port, right, via the web server, and then you can send files over that way as well. And then the last would be curl. Right, if we look at the manual for curl, right, it's a tool to transfer data to a server or from a server, right? So it's the same thing as Wget, and it's the same thing as Python HTTP server. So those are the three ways that you can transfer files over a web server. Right, now we want to talk about opening and using text editors. So there's going to be times where you're going to see a script, and if I give you an example of a script, we'll do search exploit FTP, and we'll just put in the version. And then as you see here, so search exploit, and I'll go over this in a separate video, but search exploit is basically a service that you can use to find local exploits that can help you exploit certain services like FTP, for example. And here we have two search exploits for FTP, this specific version. There's backdoor command execution, which is a type of exploit. And then we have a Python script here. So if we copy this, and we go here and we say search exploit -x, which I believe allows us to view the exploit, and then we paste this in here, then now we can see the exploit. Okay, so here's the title, here's the link, the software link, okay, and essentially, so here's the whole exploit, right? Here's the function, right? And then here's the code to the exploit. Okay. And then what you would do is you would copy this exploit. Okay. Port FTP, everything's good. Sometimes you would make edits to the exploit to make sure it's going to your IP address for the local host, or it's going to the right R host. But in this case, we don't need to make any edits. So we'd quit. And then what we'll do is we would open up something called Nano. Now Nano is a text editor, and then what we'll do is we would paste in the Python script, and then we'll open it up. No, actually that's not what you would do. So the exit, so we do Control X, and we're not going to save. So what would actually do, I'm like fucking leaning the fuck over. So what would actually do is we would take the path, and we would so we'd basically download it. So we can actually download it here. It's actually an easier way to do it. So we would say search exploit -m, and then we would paste it in, and then now it's going to copy to our current directory. So now if we ls, we should see it in here, and here it is. And then now we can nano. Okay, so now we'll nano, and nano is a text editor that we could use to edit different scripts or just write notes and credentials. And then we'll type in the name of the exploit, which is 59757.py. Whoops. .py. And then we open it up, and then now we're in our text editor, and we can see the exploit. Okay. And then what we could do is we can make changes to the exploit if we need to. Okay. So I'm in the exploit, I'm looking, okay, you know, if I wanted to change this from exiting for whatever reason, I can make changes to it. And this is important because sometimes when you have a exploit that you're trying to exploit, a lot of times you have to make changes to it. In this case, you know, it doesn't look like we need to make any changes. We may have to make changes to the password and the username, but for the most part, we don't need to make that many changes. And so once we're finished, we would save it, and we can save our output with Control-O, and it's going to ask us, hey, do you want to save with this name? Maybe we don't want to save with that name, and we want to save local exploit. And then we'll save, and we'll type yes, and then to exit, we'll use Control-X, and then now we're out. So now if we ls, we can see that we have a file called local exploit, and it's there. Now it's not exploitable, but this one is exploitable. Now you can see which files are exploitable and which ones are not based on, are they highlighted green or are they just white? See, white means file, dark blue means directory, and green means executable file. Okay, so this is executable, but if we made changes to the exploit, then we're going to want to use this exploit instead. So how do we make this executable? Okay, so one thing that we can do is we do change mod +X, and then we'll say local exploit, and then what you'll see is now it's green, right? So now I can run it. So to run it, I'll type in Python local exploit, okay, and then it will run. Now I'm not going to run it now because we obviously don't need to run the code. I'm actually going to remove it. All right, and I'm also going to remove the original exploit to keep my files clean. And there we go. So that's basically the basics of Kali Linux. If I miss anything, feel free to leave it in the comment section. But essentially, as a recap, we learned how to move and rename files, creating different files. We also learned how to create directories, remove directories, and change directories. We learned about the important etc files and where we can find passwords, you know, to the remote host or to the computer. We learned the get command and how to download files directly to your computer from remote computers. We also learned how to transfer files over a web server, right, using 3 different services, Wget, Python, HTTP server, and using the curl command. We also learned how to open and use text editors, and we learned how to change files to make files executable. Okay, if I missed anything, leave it in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. For more content on Linux fundamentals or hacking, I think I'm going to do some hack the box series and stuff like that, showing you guys some of the retired boxes. If you guys want to see any of that, click the subscribe button below, and I'm out.